Blaine Fowler, dual threat analyst, Uncle B, back in Studio B to talk BYU basketball and football. But first and foremost, Blaine, which video game would you play at LaVell Edwards Stadium?
So I'm miserably bad at Mario Kart, and I don't know why, because I'm an excellent driver. But I just can't seem to stay on the road. So I'm going to go way old school. The only game I've ever been good at, and I'm telling you, I was like elite level.
Okay.
Is Donkey Kong. And nobody plays that anymore. Right. But if you could bring back Donkey Kong, I'd be like a #1 seed in a national tournament.
Were you the arcade stud?
Yeah.
Had the big group gathered around you?
Yeah. Oh, Donkey Kong was my jam. But
nice. But
I try to play Mario Kart with the kids, and my 6-year-old grandson Bradley can beat me, no problem.
That's humiliating. Yeah, yeah. Okay, we've been talking about if Josh Shear-Hardnett indeed transfers. We're still waiting to hear whether that's actually the case. Who fills the void if he's gone?
Well, and I heard you talking before, and I was back in the control room listening to you. And before you said that it needed to be picked up by Nick Emery, I was like, well, first of all, Nick Emery needs to pick that up. But I also think that Harding needs to have a role in this. So I would say more heavily weighted toward Emery, but some help from Harding. So I'm right with you on that. And honestly, it's not on the offensive end that I'm worried, because I think BYU's got a lot of skilled offensive guys, and especially the two that you just mentioned. They easily could have the green light to say, listen, we need you to do this, and they're very capable. This is not a team that's struggling offensively. They're very good offensively. Where Hardnett hurts if he leaves is on the defensive end, not just in the half-court defense, but in transition defense, because he's got good lateral quickness. He's really strong. And he does a great job when teams get out in transition offensively of redirecting the basketball. So #1 rule in transition D is you got to stop the ball or redirect the ball. And he's probably the best on BYU's team at doing that, where he'll force the guy with the ball, instead of going right to the foul line or getting into the paint and finishing, redirect him to have to go sideways and change direction, which slows the breakdown and lets everybody else get involved defensively. He's the best they have at it. Now, having said that, Nick Emery is also strong and has good lateral quickness. So it's not just, hey, what points does Nick need to fill? It's, can he become a really good transition defender? He's capable. He just has to now say, oh, you know what? I've got to do that, and I've got to do it really, really well. And then who can do that when Nick's on the bench? Because he can't play every minute of the game. And so McKay Cannon has to pick it up defensively and be good there. And then in the half court, Hardnett's pretty good at staying in front of the ball with a ball handler. And so both of those two mentioned have to do a better job of that. They've got to stay in front of the ball a little bit longer, because to me, that's where BYU's defensive breakdowns start, is that they don't stay in front of the ball long enough. Rotations aren't quick enough. There's not a big shot blocker in the middle to funnel people to. And so everybody's helping, and then they're not recovering after the three-point line. So offensively, BYU's going to be just fine. Defensively, some guys are going to have to step it up in a big way to fill that void.
With that defensive emphasis on the mind, I said if I could start 5 guys tomorrow, it would be Nick Emery, Connor Harding, TJ Haws, Dalton Nixon, and Yoli Childs. It's a small lineup, but I like the energy that group brings on both ends of the floor together. Who would you add to that mix, Blaine?
I mean, I like that. And depending on matchups, like Worthington's a really good pick-and-roll defender. That's his best. So if you're playing against a team that does a bunch of pick-and-roll stuff, and he's the guy that's going to be on the big, he understands it, he makes the right calls, he's a really good defender. So I would add him to that situationally. But I like your thought. I think that Dalton Nixon brings an energy and a toughness that needs to be out on the floor, probably more minutes, because if BYU is going to get better defensively, now keep in mind, you know, defense, we always say defense travels, so defense goes on the road, and BYU's had this ridiculous road stretch. So now let's cut them a little bit of slack and see if they can find themselves here at home, because they're going to be fine offensively. Can they get some momentum defensively here when they have a little bit of a homestand and get back at home? They're going to have more runs off. Your runs are more often and more points offensively when you're home. Everybody is, right? And defensively, since a lot of it's a mindset and energy, when your home crowd's there, you find yourself getting more stops down the stretch in games and do those kinds of things. I think the combination of a little bit unsettled lineup, Nick coming in late, you know what BYU needs? They need Eric Mika to have stayed in school, and they need Elijah Bryant to have stayed in school. Because guess what? the two things we just talked about, Elijah's a really good perimeter defender with length. He can stay in front of the ball a little bit longer, right? And then Mika's a guy that you can say, listen, push up on the three-point shooters and don't worry about getting beat. Because if you get beat, just put your nose on the back of their number and make sure they don't pull up for a jump shot. Make them go to our shot blocker. And Mika is a big presence. And so, and they didn't leave to go first-round draft picks in the NBA. Like it's not Kentucky's guys that are going out early.
I would have taken second round.
Or Duke's guys, right?
I would have taken second round.
Right, and so
I would have taken free agent.
So they're trying to figure that out. And Yoli, as good a shot blocker as he is, he's not an imposing guy in the paint that you go, let's just funnel everything to that guy. In fact, he's most of the time covering somebody that's out away from the basket, you know. And so it would help to have those guys. They're trying to figure that out, and then this huge road swing. It just kills you. And I feel like they've lost confidence defensively. They got to get it back at home.
Yeah, I love that BYU's coming home. And they're 7-1 to this point. It's been a stark contrast from what we have seen on the road. And if I'm trying to motivate this BYU team, they still have San Francisco, St. Mary's, and Gonzaga coming to Provo. And I'm saying you have an opportunity to beat some really good teams in a place you have shown you play really well.
Yeah, and so they have Portland coming in tomorrow, which is good because they don't have any real quality wins. They've struggled against good teams this year. They're coming into this place where BYU can play with confidence. They need that. They need Portland to come in. Santa Clara coming in on Saturday, who's been a little bit better. Santa Clara's got a couple of good wins. You know,
yeah, Santa Clara's won 8 of 9.
They beat USC. They beat Washington State. You know, they beat San Diego just recently, but they just got pounded by Gonzaga last Saturday. But everybody's getting
fill in the blank on that one. Yeah.
Who did Gonzaga pound this last week?
Gonzaga pounded?
Who did they pound this last week?
Fill in the blank, yeah.
But I feel like these two games, and I like the way they build from Portland to Santa Clara at home. BYU has to find themselves again. And not so much offensively, but defensively they got to find themselves. They need to play a better level of defense all game long, but more importantly, and I don't know that these two games will be tight games, maybe Santa Clara. At the end of games, they got to find it in themselves to raise the level and get some stops down the stretches, which they've struggled with games when they've been close all season long. And defense is a mindset. It is about talent. And BYU doesn't have, you know, a lockdown perimeter defender. They don't have a rim protector. So they have to play defense as a team. And they're trying to figure that out. They need to figure it out now, and I think the best time to do it is with a couple of home games.
BYU in Portland tomorrow night, 9 Eastern on BYUtv, BYU Radio. Riley Bird announces he'll grad transfer. So how do you see the running back position, and what does BYU need perhaps on signing day?
Well, I know they're looking for a JC guy, but you don't just go take a JC. You don't take a JC guy unless he can help right now. The one carrot you have is you know, you can go to a JC guy and say, listen, you can go there, X, right? But you know, you're in the mix. You're gonna have an opportunity. You can come here and you're in the mix.
And look how many guys we played last year. You're gonna
play, and you're gonna. So they have a little bit of a carrot they can use in recruiting because I think they need more depth there, and then they got to keep guys healthy because Lopini is a fine running back, you know, and he can get the job done. And I'm with you. I like Algiers a lot, and I think that he is just developing. He's a physical presence. He reminds me of Fui Vakapuna and Manasseh Tonga.
5'11",
really
200.
Good backs here.
beast.
Yeah, and so he has a chance to be really good, but you have to have depth there, right? And we've seen that they have to have depth there. So if they can find a JC player that they can lure with that carrot, that you're going to be in the rotation, you're going to play, I like it. But if you just bring a guy in to have another body, then you're better just taking somebody and moving positions than bringing in just a warm body. So it depends on who they can get a commitment from. They need depth there. But here's the good news. You know, I watched this team come down the stretch, and that offensive line has really developed. They're all back to be in the weight room, to be together. I'm not going to say all back.
You only lose Austin Hoyt,
right,
really.
You lose Austin.
In the starters.
And in the two deep, almost everybody's back. And there's All-Americans in that mix with Empey, who was a freshman. There's potential All-Americans there. The running backs are going to look better next year when you have that group with another year under their belt. And now Zach is comfortable back there at quarterback. I know that you lose Hoker to a mission, which I think is a fantastic thing for him personally. It hurts a little bit because he's a really good weapon. But hopefully Moroni comes back and is healthy at tight end. So you have weapons coming back all over the field. I love the young group of wide receivers. So running back doesn't have to be unbelievable. It just has to be solid with what they have left offensively to come back. And I like the way this offense goes into the offseason with momentum. And so let him go find a JC guy to provide depth. But I'm not in a panic about the running back position.
Blaine, you're making me more and more excited about what's to come in the 2019 college football season, which is still kind of far away.
Countdown to the Utes.
232.
232 days away, Blaine.
That's it, Blaine. Only 232 days.
I love it. We just have to look forward to it. I mean, we're completely immersed in basketball. I've been off on the road doing games the last couple of weeks, and so I'm glad I get to be home. I have 2 games in Provo.
You're home.
I'm not
home
in
too,
Dayton.
like,
I'm not at Fordham. I'm not like. So it's nice. It's nice to be home.
That's why Gavin was in New York City.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, Gavin came with me, and then,
That's awesome.
and I did Dayton and Richmond this last weekend for NBC. It's good. It's good to contrast and compare. It's good for me to get out into other leagues and look,
Sure.
and then I can come home. It gives me a little bit better perspective. And
And then you can unappreciate the West Coast Conference officials.
It's also good. It's also good that at some point you take your nephews with you to New York City. Because
guys should come with
if there's
me.
Yeah,
one
when
person I want to tour New York City with,
yeah,
it's
let's,
you.
Let's party.
I took Gavin to Dear Evan Hansen, the musical, and you guys, 2 thumbs up for it. Gavin and I were laughing. I kept looking at him. I'm not crying. You're crying. He was crying. But it's great. It's in both of our top 5 of all time now. Dear Evan.
very nice.
Wow.
There's a recommend for you from our last.
Like I said, we need to tour New York
you
City
guys need
together.
to come with us.
Yes.
I've got a game at Fordham in February. You come.
All
Okay,
right.
February it is.
Okay? In fact, I have Virginia Commonwealth at Fordham in February. So you want to see some defense?
That's the game.
Come watch VCU.
That's the game.
They can defend.
I forgot what it looks like.